put your feet up, grab a coffee or whatever beverage takes your fancy and chill out for about 45 minutes or so. We don't know, because originally this was broadcast live, so if you're watching this after the live event, after the 8th of February 2022, then it's not live. But it's live right now at this moment, which is just gone 3 p.m. UK time on the 8th of Feb. And why am I here? Well, I want to talk about my new book, so stick with me for a few moments, folks. We've got a book that is just been published. It's brand new. This is the book here. It is Matthew Palmer's Watercolour Landscapes for the Absolute Beginner. This is my palette of all my colours. You can probably make out my name on some of these paints here. I've got my own range of watercolours. This particular one is natural green, which is there. And there's 14 colours, so I'm not going to detail all of them, but this entire picture can be done with 3 paints if you want to go down that road. So you don't need every single colour at all. You can just kind of go with it, which is quite nice. A few colours that I know I'm probably going to be using are the 2 greens here. We've got natural green and natural green light. Very popular colours designed for replicating nature. That's natural grey, which is a great colour for shadows, and here we've got some yellow, some bright yellow, but you can do it all with 3 primary colours. So I've got quite a lot of, as you can see here, quite a lot of paints hanging around, so I'm going to be using a mixture of all sorts of different colours. And my advice to you is just watch it, chill out, then if you want to have a go, just paint along. So if you'd like to purchase a copy of the book, or maybe book a virtual painting workshop with me, there's one taking place pretty much every weekend. There's one happening this Sunday, the 13th of February, and as you can see just below the screen here, it is going to be a beautiful springtime river scene with the stunning silver birch trees, the nice woodlands, the silver birch trees, bluebells, gorgeous bluebells, and of course an old rustic bridge. There's a link in the description. Those workshops only use 3 colours, red, yellow, blue, primary colours, and 3 brushes as well. All the information is down in the description, so do make sure you book a place. It's a £10 workshop that you can watch live or at any time. Let's stop talking, let's get painting. Here we've got a sheet of 1/4 Imperial watercolour paper. We're going to zoom in nice and close to this so we can see what we're doing. Well, there it is. Now I've stuck this to a board. It's a wooden board, and the paper I'm using is £140. That's bloody expensive. Or 300 gram in weight. Masking tape. It's a not surface. Matthew Palmer's the paper. That's the brand of the paper. And I'm going to do a little bit of sketching, a little teeny weeny bit of sketching for this. I've got yellow hands. Yeah, a bit of yellow paint on the hand there. Is that what it is? Yes, it is. It is. So just a little teeny weeny bit of sketching, nothing too major here, because I feel I want to just add a bit of a sketch to this picture. So my first thing I want to do is I want to bring in a nice sort of tall tree coming up here. So I want to sketch in. I'll put quite a lot of pressure down here on the paper. That is, I want to sketch in these sort of tall trees here. Let's have a few of these kicking in, and we'll get these sort of weaving out like so. So what, a little bit of a woodland themed landscape I think would be quite effective here. I've got no idea how this is going to turn out. So 3 loose tall trees here. We're going to sweep down here. I'm going to rock the pencil like that. That's going to give us a bit of a banking, which is probably going to be a stream or something down here. So I'll take that across there. That'll be quite nice to have some sort of stream running through. It's all part of the fun, just to sort of see how the paint evolves really. Let's get this coming around here. And I'll bring that down there like so. Notice the rock of the pencil. The pencil was quite loosely sort of rocked in place there. We're rocking it on. We'll bring that across there like so, and that'll give us some area to put some landscape of some kind. Don't know exactly what until we start painting, but that's enough information for that sketch. And as far as what brushes I'm going to use, I'm just going to use the brushes as I progress through the actual demo. So my first thing that I want to do is I want to wet the entire sheet of paper. I am going to be using quite a big brush for this. This one's a size 20 brush. and literally just water, I want to wet the entire page here. So this is just straight from the tap stuff. Beautiful size 20 brush here. Now the book we've produced with Search Press is a lovely sequel to a best-selling book of mine called Matthew Palmer's Watercolours for the Absolute Beginner. This is a lovely sequel, but it's a very thick book. There's 176 pages worth of content. About 70% of it is new, the rest of it is from a book that no longer exists. So it's a merger. It's giving you a really good value book for £12.99. That's the sort of standard UK retail price. Again, you can check out all the information down in the links below. That's a lovely wash of colour, nice kind of starting point there. You can see the water reflecting. You can also see any dry bits as well, so make sure you've got a nice watercolour wet sheet of paper. Doesn't matter which direction you go with that, just make sure it's all covered. That looks pretty good to me. Can't go wrong, can you really? Jump to the palette. There we go. Let's grab some kind of warm colours. I think I'm going to go for this one. Natural orange. You can mix an orange if you wish. I've got some kitchen paper there as well. Just a bit of pale orange. And I'm going to sweep it down. Like so. Like I say, I do intend to put a bit of a stream on this one, so I'm just going to add a little bit of, because it's not just about landscapes, that new book, it's got quite a lot of seascape content in there as well, because for me, I think they just go hand in hand together. I think they just make sense together. So that's natural orange. So I'm going for a bit of a warm evening or a bit of a sunrise vibe to this. And until we actually get the painting finished, no one knows how this will come out. Not even Mr. Palmer. That, to me, that is part of the fun, just spontaneously just doing this, and hopefully it makes it more watchable. Maybe more watchable. Cool. So all looking good. And basically, once that's gone in, I'm then going to jump back to the palette. I'm going to take some natural violet. That's natural violet. Perfect. On the colour, and this is going to go at the top of the page. It's quite a blue colour, but look how smooth it goes in. This is a gorgeous brush. Look how pointy it is as well. Really nice brush. Sweep it in. It's a size 20 brush, this one, and I'm just going to get that very simple, straightforward watercolour sky. Look how smooth the paint graduates together. Really effective, simple, nice, clean sky. Let's drop a bit of that into the water as well. Little horizontal lines. Like so. And that will create some kind of reflection when we get to that stage. We're going to put some trees over here as well. Super. So, as far as painting trees, just a standard brush would be fine, but I've actually got my own sort of specialist branded brush. This particular one, if you can make that out, is Matthew Palmer Tree and Texture Brush Large. That's nice for this. I'm going to take the green here. This is natural green. I want to mix it into the brush like so, and give it a good old stipple. Bash in the brush. You can see the brush goes nice and spiky then, can't you? See the spiky? Which is quite cool. And for this, we're going to bring it in and we're going to work on this left side. The paper's damp. That's a good stage to be at, in my opinion. Nice. Let's go for this. Let's stipple in. Let's stipple in some trees. I love how the paint spreads. So with every tap of the brush, you get that nice individual spread. I'm going to drop in a little bit closer for you because I want you to see as much as possible here. I can make the green lighter by mixing some lighter green with it. Again, if you've not got these particular colours, these Matthew Palmer colours, doesn't matter, just primary colours. Just primary colours and you'll be all set for this. Can't go wrong really, can you? A nice bit of a twist, doing its due. But a good sign of a good paper is if it stays wet a long time, and this is still very, very workable. Very workable as a surface. The paint's quite thick, to be fair. And I'm just using this flat top of the brush. If I get the brush close to the camera, you can see how it's got this nice sort of flat edge. There you go, you can see it now, the camera's focused on it. Really nice for this kind of work. So yeah, do have a look at these. Everything's available online. If you like any of this stuff, I mean, I'm not saying you have to rush out and buy anything. You can just use normal brushes, but it's there for you to use to make, it makes life easier, don't it? So I'm working along this. I want to create some distance here, almost a little bit misty. Can you see my brush is getting a bit dry? That's creating mist. There's less paint on the brush. Now the book doesn't use tree and texture brushes, so you don't need to worry about having all these fancy tools. It mentions them briefly, so if you do have them you can use them, but really it's just a case of anything goes. As I work lower down on this picture, because it is got a bit of an evening vibe to it, as I work lower down I will be adding a touch more grey to the mix. So over to the palette. Grey is the colour of shadow, so a nice strong shadow grey. Nice and dark, you can see how dark that is. So I've introduced natural grey to the mix. If you've not got natural grey, just add a bit of blue to the green. That'll darken it, but honestly don't be afraid to go dark. I mean, that is almost grey there. But if you imagine how it would be at the base of a woodland, especially on an evening or a morning like we've gone for here, it's going to really help to add depth. The darker at the bottom of the trees, the more you can see inside the trees, and that to me really is kind of what I'm interested in seeing here. So that goes in quite nicely. Bring it down. So I'm always conscious that I can see that bit of a distant thing happening. It's got a nice bit of depth. A bit more grey. So really quite heavy stuff there. That looks nice, don't it? Already we've got that kind of massive early morning foliage. Yeah, massive early morning foliage. I like that. What I've got here, folks, is a little plastic card from some sort of hotel or some old store card or something. Gonna use this to put the trees in, some lighter trees. Get a bit closer. The light's still reflecting a little bit, the studio lights, but that's fine. So here I'm just going to put lots of pressure and go up and scrape away some trees, as you can probably see. Really get that nice effective light. Now if this doesn't work for you first time, it's probably because your paint is probably too wet, too thin. Just give it a few minutes to soak in and it will start to work for you. If it goes darker as you scratch it, that's because it is too watery. But it's quite a nice effect, this, and you've probably seen me do it before if you're a regular viewer of mine on my YouTube channel and various things, and on the website Watercolour TV. Or if you've got any of my books, you've probably seen this effect in action. But it's such a nice little trick, isn't it? It really does work exceptionally well. Always been a fan of this, and it's an easy way of making a woodland. I always think of silver birch trees when I do this, which is a great, it's probably my favourite tree. That and an oak tree probably, because I like all the gnarls that you get in the oak trees. But that's a beautiful effect of branches, twigs and trunks. Nice, beautiful, can't go wrong. Got some fingerprints there, but you know what, that's not a problem, because we are going to be working over the top of this now to put some more foliage on. I've picked up a little bit more of the colour, exactly the same colour, and just want, now things are a little bit on the dry side, just going to do a little bit of extra tapping, just a little bit, because it's just starting to dry off. So this will give us a touch more detail in these trees. So literally just exactly the same colour as we were just using just mixed a bit more, just getting a bit short on it, and just using the brush straight on to stipple in a bit of extra, little bit of extra foliage. We'll pop some more detail in as we progress into this, but I want to keep that bit as it is because I like the mist we've created over there, so we'll certainly keep that. But we can work back over this, and it puts leaf over the trees as well as everything else what it does. Super. Nice. Quite effective. Now I need to see reflections of that, so I'm literally going to grab a size 10 brush. I've got the green here. Can always mix more if we need to. Yellow and blue will give you green obviously, but here I'm using my own range of greens. You don't have to use these natural greens, they're called. Pretty easy to work with. Literally just horizontal lines for the tree reflection right here. So quite a quick picture, quite a quick pace. If you're trying to paint along with this, you probably think I'm slow down, Mr. Palmer. Probably working a little bit on the quick side, but it's a demo, and a demo is quick because I'm always conscious that people start to drift off, not asleep, but physically drift off. So I like to do a demo pretty quickly. If you want to work a little bit more steady with me, a bit more relaxed pace, then that's where you'd think about booking on to one of my virtual workshops. These take place on Sundays normally. There's one this Sunday the 13th, we mentioned it at the start. And if you'd like to book a space, there is a link in the description, but there's pretty much one every weekend. So if you're watching this at a later stage, please don't worry, because you can still grab yourself a space to whichever one's coming up just by heading on over to my website, which of course is Watercolour TV. Like the reflection, we'll come back on the zoom a little bit. That's looking good. We're going to add more detail as we progress into the picture. I do have a brush here which is quite pointy. It's a pointy brush. This is the one. It's Matthew Palmer Branch and Detail brush. We're going to be using that one to add some glorious detail over to the palette. For this I want to be taking natural grey. I can mix it in the green, that's fine. Just natural grey. That's natural brown there as well. That can go into play as well. There it is, just a little wipe on tissue. So I've got this beautiful kind of loaded brush here, which will allow me to go in. Make sure my hand's clean this time. I've got fingerprints up there. This will allow me to go in and put in some darker branches. Basically, that's what I want to be doing now. So, and of course, some of these were sketched in as well. So, but there's going to be a lot of these in a woodland, as you can probably imagine. So, and it's still, look, it's still damp. The painting is still workable. That's a great little thing to mention here. So this brush holds a lot of colour, and it feeds the tip, so it allows the paint to stay nice and fresh, which is good for doing some these extra fine branches. What I'll be doing here is popping some leaf on these towards the end of the demo, and like I say, you know, this is purely, there's no reference photographs, there's no images, there's no other paintings. This is the first. So if you're watching this live currently on the 8th of Feb, then you're watching this being created from scratch, working from imagination, which is something I love to do. If you've never done that before, I'd encourage you to give it a go. For me, if I just say, well, this is the picture we're going to paint, it's kind of like copying, but you know, but here this is creating a new scene, a new picture from the beginning, which is all part of the fun. Look at that, really adds to it. You can rotate the board, because otherwise you tend to paint a lot of right-handed trees, if of course you're right-handed, that is. So we'll get a few branches weaving into that side. Nothing stopping us, nothing whatsoever. Get in a bit more colour and add in a few. In fact, I'm just going to pick up a slightly bigger brush, number 6 brush here, and actually add some branches within this area as well. These are the ones what I sketched in, because I sketched in a couple of taller trees, if you remember, so they can go in. And I can just use this number 6 brush too. You might notice a slight richer colour there. Can you see if I tilt it away from the studio lights, how it's a little bit deeper? I've just added a touch of natural brown to that. If you've not got natural brown, add a bit more red to it, and that will make the colour a little bit more of a pop. It'll make it pop, leap forward, contrast. It's quite a deep colour, so it really goes in. Number 6 brush is what I'm using here, and I will eventually move on to the finer brush, but because it's a slightly deeper tree colour and a closer tree, that's why I've stuck to that. Look how nice that's coming together, all becoming part of this. Coming back to the fine brush now, the branch and detailer, and going in, and I've got to say the paper is still workable, which is giving me a slight softness to these branches, especially around where the trees are. That's a good sign, and that's what you're looking for, folks, in a paper that stays wet for as long as possible, because if you like doing landscapes, seascapes, then that's where you'd really benefit from a nice quality paper. This particular one is just branded up as Matthew Palmer paper. It's a paper that we have made by a French company, and it is a lovely surface to work on. You can pick it up on the website, of course. Now, talking about websites, do make sure you head on over to Search Press's website. We have the link in the description below where you can look at their full range of watercolour books, knitting books, craft books, cake decorating books, knitting books. They publish a huge selection of art and craft. In fact, they have a 50-year history of publishing art and craft books to Search Press, so a lot to choose from, including the new one of Mr. Palmer's, of course. Let's pop some reflections of those trees in the water. Straight below, let's get a little bit of a wobble, because they're a little bit closer, you see. So just a slight reflection. You'll see these a bit more, just line them up as we put in some of the base. That one there's got a bit of a lean on it, so we'll give that one a bit of a, that one too. And then just a few little horizontal lines around the edge. So you're starting to get that nice little area. Let's come back on that. So we've got, what we've got so far, folks, is we've got distance, which is great. We've got a lovely bit of distance there. We're starting to pull things a bit closer. Let's get a bit more colour down there. Just picked up a bit more green. We've got a nice reflective corner, which is nice in the stream. The trees are pretty much in place. Liking that. Distance is now time to work on the banking, but really that wants a little bit of time to dry. I can use a hairdryer, which I'm going to go over there and grab, but just in the meantime, again, let's have a quick flick while people are with us watching the paint dry, because that's what you're doing. You basically sat watching paint dry. Let's take a look at the new book, folks, which is the brand new one, which has just been published literally only a few weeks back. Week, 2 weeks ago. Matthew Palmer's Watercolour Landscapes for the Absolute Beginner. 176 pages of watercolour goodness. If you'd like to pick up a signed and numbered version, a first edition numbered from 1 to 500, there's a beautiful label inside there which is all hand signed, and there's a certificate of authenticity as well. You can grab a copy of this. It's a lovely thing, folks. A lot of work goes into these, and a big shout out to all of the editors, staff and marketing team and commissioning editors, and Caroline and Martin and everybody that works on these books over at Search Press. This one has got about 60-70 pages of brand new content, as well as lots of content from a previous book which is no longer available. And yeah, let's put in something down here now. So for this, I'm just going to be using a size 10 brush, which is hanging around here. And I'm going to be using some browns and greys and all sorts here. So that's natural grey. You've seen me use natural grey. It's probably my most known colour because it's the colour of the old shadows. So we've got some natural grey here. You can mix a grey from your primary colours, and if you do the workshop on a Sunday, you'll learn how to do that, because all we use is 3 base colours. We're also going to take some natural brown, which will pop just at the side of the palette. We'll take green. You've got to have green, some grassy stuff going off. We've got the two greens, natural green and green light. And that's enough really colours. I am going to mix these on the paper. And that for me is a good way to work on watercolours. Let's start off on this side here, a little bit closer in for you. We are zooming in live as well, so there's no editing of that. So just enjoy it. Spontaneous. I'm going to turn this upside down, so it's now an Australian landscape. If you're in Australia, it's an English landscape. What we'll do is we will take the grey and we're going to go along the water's edge. Don't be afraid to put this on dark, because it won't be this dark forever. Trust me, I'm an artist. It will get lighter. It will get lighter, so you just got to pop it on, young sir. There you go. Now then. We've got the brown. The brown comes into play, mixing on the page with the grey. It all goes on and makes an interesting mess on the paper. You said it. There's the green, the light green. Natural green. Again, you can mix your colours. You can mix your colours. You don't have to use these colours. But it's dark. Why not? It's dramatic. It won't always be this dark though. You'll see where we're going with this. Up towards the trees. This is just the greens. I'm just alternating between the two greens. Up towards those trees. We'll get that coming in. And then we'll turn this the right way. Get the paint going into the old trees. Just by brushing it in. Very crude. Size 10 brush. Clean the brush. Give it a bit of a tap on kitchen paper. And the background is dry because we've just dried it. And just using a little bit of water to scrub, soften, blend, tweak, fiddle, and to make sure that everything is all nicely blended into that background, which is quite easy to do. Quite easy to do. And at the same time, I'm also refreshing the paint. Look at that, another fingerprint. It's one of those days. It's been a strange day today. I'll blame the weather. What we'll do is we'll bring it in. Plastic card. We've got it here. Plastic card. Call yourself a professional. We'll take this plastic card and we're going to scrape off some areas of grassy goodness. Just by using a plastic card. If you want to be posh, use a palette knife for this. But just imagine it's the nice little sort of. Isn't that nice, eh? Beautiful, beautiful. It's quite satisfying, that. A satisfying scratch. We all like a good scratch, don't we? A good scratch and a good sit. I always think that you can't beat a good sit. You know, after a long day, a good sit down is wonderful. Bit of a... There you go. That's good, isn't it? That we like that. And of course you can just sort of work it into your trees. That has made a nice little base, almost like a woodland kind of vibe going off. Do you know what I mean? It's like the edge of a wood, evening sky, or maybe a sunrise, water, and then we're going to paint in this side using a fairly similar technique, if I'm being honest. Stick with us. Anticipation is half the fun. Right, I've got a damp brush here. And I'm just flicking away to make sure that everything is part of the trees. We're going to put some light in this. I always say light comes later, but it does. Light comes later. Fabulous. Fabulous. It's the same colours. It's exactly the same colours. I just might need to remix some of them because they're getting a little bit thin on the ground. But there's the grey. There's the grey. We'll start with that because that's always a good start for this. And we're going to take this around the bend. Literally. Paint over Mr. Palmer's thumbprint. So if you bought this picture, you get an original Mr. Palmer fingerprint. That's got to add at least a couple of noughts to the price. Minus it. Along the edge, young sir. Just pop a bit of grey from time to time. Natural grey. It's made from your 3 primaries. So it's a nice easy colour to work with. We'll then do what we did before. We've got the brown, natural brown. You can mix that from primary colours. Mix orange with a bit of blue, you get brown, basically. We'll bring that in. Not a huge amount of that, to be fair, but a little bit. Doesn't go too much astray. And then we go for the greens. The light green is here, which is the one that I probably want to be using more than any. Literally. Oh, slap it on a bit. Slap it on the edge. Can't go wrong, really, can you? Bring it in. Now, if it gets a bit dry, then just add a bit of water to it, even if it was really quite hard to paint with. If it's bone dry, then you can just add water to it as well. It'll just reactivate. Because the paint's so thick, it's fairly thick, it's quite easy to look, blend it all in. Blend it all in. Is that a song? House Martins, Beautiful South, blend it all in. Like, keep it all in. Keep it all in. Something like that. Anyway, other 80s bands are also available. Let's get that in there, and we will... It's a little bit... I've often thought it must be very surreal to sit back and watch a Matthew Palmer demo, because he just raffles on about nonsense. Get on with painting. I've got Chase coming on in a bit. Does anyone watch the Chase? Tipping Point still on. If you're not from the UK, you wonder what he's talking about. I apologise. I really do. I really do apologise. I'm just spouting nonsense. Okay. Again, we'll do a similar effect, but I'm just spending a bit of time with a damp brush because it's quite enjoyable just to blend in all the paint. There it is. And then we've got the plastic card, which is here. Let's do that treatment over there. I always like this bit. If yours is too dry, dampen it again. We can just go in and... Looks like a grassy banking. You might notice me use my fingers to scrape off the excess paint every time. If you don't like the idea of getting your fingers wet, then just wipe on a bit of tissue. There it is. Up here. Now, if you're doing this in a little bit dries on you, isn't that good? It looks all nice and sort of, you know, kind of wobbly. Looks a bit wobbly. When it was too dry, just dampen it again. Damp brush. Watercolour never truly dries. You can always go in. There's little white spots you can see around the picture. That's my spit. See? Never dries. Because I'm talking. It's an elegant new from Derbyshire, is Mr. Palmer. Right, lovely. You'll never work again. Right, now what we'll do is we're going to go darker. So we'll take the grey, mix it with the brown, bit of brown, and we will go in and just make sure we do have a dark edge, because that's important, a dark edge. I want to put something over there, by the way, some distant. It needs some. So, making the paint a bit stronger is always a nice thing to do. And literally I'm going in and just adding a bit of added texture to the areas, scattering it around. I can also use this brush, this is the size 10 I'm using, to add a bit of extra darkness to the trees. Even popping in some random trees in between. It all depends how your brush is as far as points, but this one is quite pointy. It's like a super point, this one. Make sure the hand's clean because I'm going for the sky. We're going to go darker here as well, folks, just on the edge of the trees again. What could possibly fail? Bring it in. Again, you've always got that option of picking up your branch and detailer, just to get a little bit finer with those branches. Because now it's all dry, it's quite easy to get a good crisp edge to your paint. It is. It's quite rewarding, actually. I've just got a number 6 brush here. I'm just going to sort of smooth away some of those hard grey bits that I've just popped in on the edge to make sure they're not too obvious. Just water, that's all. And actually, in actual fact, this is quite nice. You know where the trees are? These ones that were sketched in. With your number 6 or any brush, you could just bring them lower down. It's quite relaxed, isn't it, this? It's not... There's no structure to this demo. It's just a case of whatever happens. Winter Olympics is on. That's what's on at the minute, yeah. Which is definitely better than watching paint dry, if we're being completely honest. I suppose it depends what event it is, does it? Let's emphasise the reflections a bit more as well. This is kind of speed painting, which is nice and obviously quickly done and all sort of done with speed. Over here, where these areas meet the banking, let's add some reflections over there. Little horizontal lines of... Make sure your lines are horizontal, because it all helps to give movement in water, and movement in water is very, very healthy, yeah? More reflections to come. Notice I've kept the light in the middle. That makes perfect sense because of the nature of the scene. And just keep going and adding more and more horizontal lines. Keep adding little bits of darks. There's the mystery of the Blair Witch Project in those woods, without a doubt. We've got the tree and texture brush now, which is still hanging around. We've got the light green, natural green light, with a bit of natural green. That's the darker one. And give it a bit of a stipple. Fabulous. Well done for sticking around, folks. The picture's taking a nice bit of shape. I'm going to pop some little individual leaves. Look how nice and crisp and individual these things are at this particular point. And there's nothing stopping you working over the top of all this area. I always think a number 6 brush at hand with a bit of the green as well. And that's quite good just for being a bit more, you know, just doing a few individual ones, because it makes the viewer think that you've spent a lot of time painting leaves when you could have been sat watching the Winter Olympics. Or Bargain Hunt, is that still on? There we go. Loose Women, is that on? Loose Women. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, please just have a look for UK daytime TV and you'll know exactly where I'm coming from here. It's quality stuff. There's no doubt about it. It's first class BAFTA winning stuff. But I'm just going to pop in. I mean this demo. I don't mean Loose Women. Let's bring in some extra little bits of green. It's just giving me a bit of interest, isn't it? Anything to make your picture more interesting, to be fair. Good little scene in there, folks. Let's pop some extra reflections in. With grey on your brush, dry it off in a bit of tissue, make your brush go a little bit spiky. What we do is we put some downward lines. I call these skid marks, but you know what I mean. Obviously, they're not them kind of skid marks, but they are like tyre tracks kind of things. But I always feel this adds a bit of reflective properties to your water. It like sort of makes it look like you've got depth. Are you with me on this? Are you on the same page? Which is always good. It's always good. I like that. I'm a fan of that. Mr. Palmer used to paint 30 years ago when I was a boy. They used to paint in a lot of little rustic fence posts, birds, but then everyone used to paint birds, so I stopped doing birds and I started painting little gate posts instead. So over here is an old broken down gate. I know the feeling. Bring that in. It gives scale. I always think it gives a little bit, give it a tilt. There you go. Fabulous. It gives a bit of scale to your picture. and I can use this to sort of recede back into the woodland, which further enhances the mystery of the Blair Witch Project. Bring it across. If you fancy a challenge, spend a couple of nights in this wood with a video camera. I don't endorse that kind of activity. I'll take that little fence away. So we've basically led it down the garden path there. Why would there be a fence there? Well, it keeps the riffraff away, basically. That's the reason that's there. It's the only reason. Stops the sheep escaping. Love that. Really happy with that little side. That's given me a bit of interest. And would I say reflection? Could maybe of those posts, but we're going to pop a hint of reflection in. I feel we can it's a suggestion of. We've just lost 30 viewers. I'm sorry. Okay, right. We haven't really. I was joking, we lost 40. Right, now what we're going to do is just use the tree brush again. How are we doing for time? Bags of time. We'll paint another one. I've got a bit of scrap paper here. Actually, it's not really scrap, is it? That it's actually quite a nice bit of paper. But I want to use it over here with the tree brush. Again, tree and texture. And going to do some stipply little things on this side, bushes and stuff. Quite strong with the colour, but you know, just a bit of something over there. Let me get the camera on. There it is. So that just gives a bit of interest over that side. If you want to, it's up to you really. You don't have to do any of this stuff if you don't wish. Good. What else have we got? What else have we got? We have some little branchy bits and little bits of shadows and things you can add to the base of this. It just all gives a bit of foreground niceness to your picture. Bit of water. Actually, if I get the plastic card on that one and just give it a few little bits of, make it look like it's attached to the, can you say I can scrape away the paint again? So as though it's attached to the edge. Quite a strong colour that. It's quite a strong paint. But that's all good. Bit of water just to encourage this little dark area. It's a very moody picture. I've had a moody afternoon, so that's why it's moody. Not really. Painting is pleasurable. I'm just putting little bits of grey here and there. Looking forward to getting a bit of light in this picture. Let's push this little bit further away by painting some grey up there on the blend it in with water. So you've now got more depth. You can see like a gap between there, which is quite nice. I'm going to take a very, very pale colour, and actually if we cast his mind back to the beginning of the picture, we did have that nice violet colour. I'm going to take some of that, very pale, number 6 brush, and just use horizontal lines to add a bit more movement in your water. Look how quick I'm doing those. That's important to be quite quick with those, because it really helps to make the areas sit down. I mean, feel free to, I always feel when I'm doing a demo, I need to work quickly, I need to work fast. But of course, you don't have to. I mean, you can take your time. Need something over there, without a doubt. It's missing something. So I could, you know, I could nip out and purchase a copy of my new book and have a look for some inspiration. But I think hills, mountains, that sort of thing would actually be quite effective. Let's have a look. In fact, we'll jump across to palette size 10, pale grey, natural grey. It's ready made from your 3 primary colours. That'll do the job. Let's paint in some distant stuff right over there. You've got the trees there to think about as well, so that's going to go in. Little hills and maybe little sort of Lake District style hills. Got the green as well. Pump some green into it, which is going to go in right there. Clean the brush and then just water all that down. Water it down. You've ruined it. We'll bring that in. Who said that? Stick with me. Let's get a bit of water. There it is. So it's a bit misty. It kind of suits the early morning vibe, don't it? That little bit of, you know, kind of distant hills things. I mean, that just proves the point. This was not planned. I mean, literally, up until starting the picture, I had no idea what I was going to paint. All I knew it was landscape, and that is really, for me, that's part of the reason I like to do this stuff, because otherwise it gets a bit boring just painting a picture. You know, if I was to paint this picture, it'd be great, but you know, I've done it before, so I like to do something a little bit new. Stick with me, folks, for a couple of minutes while I give that a quick dry. Right, that's dry, so I'm now going to go in, just pop a little bit of detail, nothing too drastic there, a little bit. Number 6 brush should be absolutely spot on for this. Let's get closer in. I love that woodland effect. Closer in, we have colours. We've got pretty much everything in there, if I'm being honest. What do I want for this? A greeny grey? Yeah. So we'll take green and put it in grey. So you now have a greeny grey. Maybe we should bring out a Matthew Palmer greeny grey. Limited edition, of course. And what we'll do here is we'll get close into this. When I say limited, I mean it'll come out on the 1st of April. Just for one day. Same as this stuff. Watercolour water. This is Derbyshire watercolour water there. It's the best in the... Yeah. His Porsche uses Buxton water to paint with. Straight from the tap. Straight from the tap here in beautiful Derbyshire. Straight from the tap. What we'll do... This has been a nice bit of escapism for me. I've needed this little demo today. So I've really enjoyed it, folks. And we're going to pop some little bits of detail on the picture here. Little distant woodlands. This could well be Derbyshire. It's a little bit peaky for Derbyshire, but it could be the Lake District in the UK. Could be a bit of Wales, bit of Welsh scene kicking up here. Let's just bring those in there. And let's just get that tapering off into the distance there. Isn't that good? Yeah, nice little bit of detail coming in there. And I'm going to turn it over just so I can make sure that I'm just getting a little bit extra coming over there, because I've actually gone almost dry brush here with these sort of distant hills. Notice that I'm also bringing them quite close together as well. What I want to do there is just take a very pale green. That's the lighter green. So there's the different greens, but the lighter one, but very weak, because I want to do a glaze, and that is just basically a transparent wash of colour just around this foreground here, just to say it makes them look a little bit closer to us. Can you see that very weak wash of colour, like a pale green kind of thing? It just helps the paint to come a little bit closer to me, which is quite nice. The tree brushes, there is a smaller one of the tree brushes. The one we used just now was the large, but there is a medium one as well, and there's actually a small one. So if I take the medium one, give it a bit of a rinse out, and then these greens, just going to dilute one down quite a bit. Doesn't really matter which one, just bit of each, tap it on a bit of kitchen paper, and then these trees, these misty trees that have vanished, I'm going to paint the edge of them back in again. Just like that. Just like that. And then a bit of water to blend them. It just kind of brings them in front of the, you know, it sort of brings them in front of the scene, don't it? Are you with me on that? Yeah, of course you are. Yeah, but where's your light? So a little bit of shadow on that edge, quite nice. Just brings a little bit of tree into play. While we're close into that area, let's do the last few branches with the branching detail brush. Just bring a little bit coming up, and anything goes really at this point. Anything goes. I really am putting the final little bits of detail on here before we finish. And please don't forget to check out the new book, folks. Have a look at the links in the description. You can buy all the books from Search Press direct. Head onto their website, searchpress.com, or check out my website, watercolour.tv, and you'll see where you can pick up the new book, a signed copy, which is quite nice. A little bit different. And yeah, it all comes from the same place at the end of the day, so do make sure you check those out and have a look. And if you do fancy a bit of painting with me at a steady pace, this is not a steady pace, this is a demo, this is rattling through at Palmer pace. But if you want to work a bit steady, then we do the nice workshops that happen on every weekend, pretty much a Sunday. Have a look. The £10 the workshops, nice way to keep the paint flowing and a nice bit of escapism for a £10 fee. You can watch it live or at any time. There's one coming up this weekend, of course, the 13th of February. We're going to paint a beautiful spring woodland. We're going to put silver birch trees, a river, and some lovely, a nice rustic bridge actually as well. So have a look at that if you've not already booked on. I know there's lots of people watching this that are probably already booked on. Thank you for your support. Almost there. Almost there. Just a bit of extra stipply on these trees here, I think. Just make them look a little bit as though they actually are present. Once they've had a few moments to dry, I shall come back and pop a little bit of branch on them. But let's just finish off by looking what we've got here. I'm going to be using whatever this is. I found this actually hanging from a tree in the car park, but there's a little bit of dry tissue there. And we do have a square brush as well, a flat brush, a chisel brush, whichever brush you decide it to be. Let's put some light in the trees, because we like a bit of light in his pictures, and we're going to wash in some light up the edge of the trees. I don't care where light's coming from. What I care about is making the trees look 3D. That to me is more important than getting the light being accurate, but obviously this is the lighter side of the tree because it's next to the sky, so to me that would be the lighter side of the tree, and I can actually go into these trees and look at that little bit of a highlight even on the little fence post. Just makes them, like, it just gives them a lift, and we all like a lift. We all like a good lift, a compliment. Human nature. Fabulous. Can't go wrong with that, can you? So that's quite effective. What else can we use here? Blend that in a little bit. We can also use a craft knife and the water. This is a craft knife here, and this is especially in the dark piece down here. You can have a good old-fashioned scratch. Scratching away. Even have a little bit of a scratch in here, you know, just to represent a few little bits of light and stuff around the picture. Just a bit of foreground scratching, nothing stopping you. It's quite a sort of dramatic scene, so it needs a bit of light, I think. So this is a good way to achieve that in a fairly quick way. Quick blast with the dryer over these trees here, and I think just a little bit of this very weak impression of a couple of little tree branches in there, in context of those distant trees, the misty trees, just to give a little bit of added detail. And of course it wouldn't be a Matthew Palmer picture without some bearded chuffs in the sky. So up here, let's have some chuffs. Bearded chuff. A Welsh chuff, is that Is that a bird? Or stuff? It could be. I think this is Wales. I think this is around Snowdonia. I think this is around the beautiful Snowdonia National Park, which is a lovely part of the world. Which I'm sure you know if you've been there. There we go. Now listen, it's always good to get mounted. It just makes such a difference. So what I want to do, that came out wrong, but you know what I mean. Let's just come back with the old camera here. There it is. So we can see it all. And then we're going to pop a frame on this, a mount, because the magic mounts do make quite a difference. Makes a huge difference actually. What a lovely pleasure that was.